Hello, everybody. You guys, I'm so excited to have everyone here today. Welcome to season 2 of the Disruptor discussions. We started this last year and was so excited we had enough response and feedback to bring this back a second time, and look forward to doing this many, many more seasons. So welcome. We're going to do things a little bit differently today. But I'll start off by telling you about Disruptor discussions, because I think that makes the most sense of what are we doing here. So at Appreciated Asset, which is my business that I've had for 7 years, our mission is to create a ripple effect for great businesses and helping them grow their solutions through our service and through our support. And as much as we help businesses grow, there's a lot of other incredible experts out there that help businesses grow with their own expertise. And I am a firm believer that there are 0 business problems that cannot be solved with more revenue. And if you find a business problem that cannot be solved with more revenue, prove me wrong by all means. But I have yet to find one. In personal life, a lot of that can translate as well. But we'll stick with business for today. So knowing that there are no business problems that more revenue cannot solve, we every week highlight a different disruptor to come in and talk about how their solution and their expertise helps businesses grow their revenue. And we talk about how they're really disrupting their own industries. So I'm going to start off today by sharing with you. This is, again, my first time hosting this way, so bear with me. Let me see here. Okay. So I'm going to share with you a PowerPoint that I've put together for today, just to kind of keep me on track, because if you know me, I am excellent at going down rabbit holes. But today, what we're really going to be focusing on is, let me get this going here, is talking about how you can be disruptor in your own business, in your own industry. And I really want to take some time. So before we get started, I will mention Joey, my producer, who is a total rock star. Thank you, Joey, for being here. Joey is available in the chat. So if you are interested, after I go through all of this with you and being put in the hot seat about talking about the way your business is disrupting or the way your business could disrupt, how we could message this better for you, I'm taking a volunteer or two, if we have time, to do that. And so if you'd like to do that, please make sure to message Joey and he'll get you in queue for that. All right, a little bit about me, just so you guys kind of know where I'm coming from. Appreciated Asset is my business, founded 7 years ago after spending my whole career in business development or sales of some form or function. And during that time, I really developed an expertise in top of the funnel opportunities, in top of the funnel sales, right? So prospecting and appointment setting specifically. At Appreciated Asset, we offer a concierge level done for you appointment setting service. And then personally, originally I'm from Boston. I live here in Charleston, South Carolina now with my 10-year-old Max, who, if you have heard me speak for more than 3 seconds, you've heard me talk about Max. But we love traveling as often as we can. I love reading. Max, not so much yet, but we're working on that. Doing anything on the water, occasional 5K, and my absolute self-care is Golden Girls reruns. So that's where I typically am in after hours, is watching old Golden Girls reruns. All right. I'm going to tell you guys about our origin story, and we haven't really shared this in the Disruptor discussions before, but I think it's really important to know how this business started. So I mentioned before that we started our business in 2018 after I really spent my whole career in sales. And the last job that I had before I started this business was working for a company in a sales role, and I was doing very well there. So well, in fact, that in July of 2018, I had doubled my quota and I had earned a bonus. So 8 days later, August 8th, and I can remember this very specifically because it was the day before my birthday, I went up to the home office to have a meeting like I would every couple months to meet with the owner. And remember, 8 days prior, I had doubled my quota and received a bonus for excellent work and going above and beyond. And 8 days after that, he let me know that I was a depreciating asset for the company. And the reason I believe that happened is because he really needed to keep his thumb on me and make sure I knew that I was not indispensable and that I was easily replaceable and that I couldn't really do anything without them. So I left that meeting and I wasn't sad. I wasn't afraid or upset. And I wasn't even enraged. I had a lot of clarity from that meeting because I realized that I would never be able to move ahead in my career staying where I was. So on my drive home, and I had a couple hours in the car on the way home, and luckily I was listening to Jen Sincero's You're a Badass at the time, which was a great entryway into personal growth. I named my business Appreciated Asset. And I committed to, no matter what this new business was going to be, that every dollar, every client, and every team member through our doors would be treated with value, respect, and appreciation. So that's how we began. So much of the way we began was disruptive before I was talking and using disruption and disruptor in our language. And I'll kind of get to that in a moment. So I started the business in 2018, and then guess what? We had a pandemic. And I was then in a position where I needed to completely revamp my business model. When I started Appreciated Asset, I really worked as essentially a fractional CRO. Before that was even a title. And realized that I needed to build out a business model that was much more diversified so that if I lost a client, I wasn't also losing 90% of my income, which at the time, income and revenue were the same because I was a solopreneur at the time. So we had a pandemic and I needed to reinvent myself. And we came up with our Sales Accelerator program. Our Sales Accelerator is, like I'd mentioned, it's a done-for-you appointment setting service where we set new business appointments for our clients with their prospect wish list. I did not set out to be a disruptor, but we absolutely were from day one. And here's why. We started this service because I had clients who were reaching out to me asking me to do sales for them. And I realized, man, they really didn't need a salesperson. They just needed more appointments. So we tested the idea. We reached out to a handful of clients. Every single client we reached out to said, yes, we want to do this. We said, look, you tell us who you want to meet with. I will reach out. I'll set you appointments and we'll go from there. And that's how it was born. But here's what we did differently. I never pretended to be from the client. I never pretended to work for them. The idea of that never even occurred to me. So instead, we reached out consultatively, right? We called from Appreciated Asset. We recommended our clients. No one else was doing it that way. No one else to this day that I am aware of does it that way. So from the very beginning of this service, of our offering, we were disrupting lead generation. But we didn't do it with the intention of being disruptive, with the intention of being controversial. We did it because it honestly felt the most aligned way to provide the service. And I think that's the idea of a disruptor that I really want to get across to you today. I'm going to tell you what I think a disruptor is. I get this question a lot. What do you mean? What's a disruptor? It's a bit of a buzzword, right? We all hear it pretty often. And it's gotten a bit trendy, but I want to tell you why it's so important. A disruptor, to me, is someone who stands outside of status quo and delivers a service that is so far superior to the competition that you are able to render them irrelevant. When we do that, we can offer service that doesn't compare apples to apples anymore. It is at that point, you were talking about apples to oranges. There would be no one else to work with. No one else delivers in the way we do. So if that resonates for you, then we are absolutely the partner that you need to be working with. The other thing about being a disruptor that I find is when you really stick to it, when you really commit to the level of excellence, you will also attract the clients that will appreciate that about you. And I think that's really something to remember. You will not be for everyone. You will absolutely, inevitably alienate someone. And someone will say, that's not for me. When someone doesn't like the idea of disruptors or disrupting their industries, they want to do it the same way granddad did it and the same way daddy did it. Look, best of luck to you. And look, if you've got a 3-generation business, you're obviously doing something right. But if people are resistant to change and resistant to evolution and evolving the way they serve their clients, they're not going to be the right partner for us anyway. And that's okay too. So being a disruptor in the industry means that you will really, really attract the people who appreciate those qualities about you in a way that it creates an absolute relationship for you rather than a transaction. And we're going to talk about the difference between relationships and transactions in a minute. All right, disruptor discussions, right? So what I realized, I'm going to circle back. I'm going to get back there for a minute. So the idea of a disruptor, we launched our disruptor discussions because we wanted to give people more opportunities to have conversations around this. But before we did that, we launched our disruptor designer. I launched this business in 2020, this version of our business. And around 2021, 2022, we were killing it for some of our clients, like just absolutely blowing it out of the park for them, getting them 12, 15 appointments a month. And then others, we just weren't getting much traction at all. And I could not figure out what the denominator was. Like, what is the common denominator here that unites the ones that we're winning for and the ones that we're not? Because it wasn't a specific type of solution. It wasn't a specific industry. It wasn't a specific decision maker. What was it? What I realized united everyone was that the clients that we did best for were disrupting their industries. They were disrupting status quo of the way people assumed that that space was going to deliver. And those were the clients. So even if they weren't using the word disruptor, they weren't like really honing in on that aspect of it, they were doing it without even knowing it, right? And I knew that we were disrupting lead generation because, like I said, the way we were delivering consultatively was different from the way anyone else was doing it. So I knew that that was the common denominator. Now, we launched our disruptor designer because we knew that if we could help other people really pull that very specific disruptive messaging and communicate that in a way that was super clear, then we could really help them stand apart from anyone else in their space and create a conversation where, again, there's no one else to work with. Those other people in your space, they are irrelevant. And I'm seeing some of you on this call, you're in spaces that are crowded. There's a lot of other people who offer or say they offer the services that you offer. So how are we going to set ourselves apart? And again, if you want to be in a hot seat, I don't know if you missed it at the beginning of the call, but please reach out to Joey if you'd like to go through this live today. We'd be happy to do that with you of how your business can disrupt your industry. All right, so disruptor discussions. We wanted to create more conversations, more opportunities for people to show how their service can really, really help people and how there's no one else to work with. Also, again, the idea of that, I love that the saying of the rising tide raises all ships, right? I think very specifically often, you guys, especially for women, we're taught that we've got to compete to get to the top, to grow our businesses. We've got to eliminate, and there's about the competition. And it's really not like that. I've really learned that when you look at everything as an opportunity to collaborate, when you're working with people who are open to collaboration, that is how you're able to disrupt industries, disrupt conversations, disrupt relationships in a way that is positive for forward movement. All right. So here's the fact. Disruptors get attention. It's not always good attention. It's not, you don't really get like the haters, but again, people self-select out. For me, when I talk about disruption, disruptors, if someone is not into that, they opt out. They self-select out. They're not on this call today, and that is fine. You really have to get over that you are not for everyone and you don't want to be. So being a disruptor is going to get you attention. but it's going to get you the right attention. And I've got some proof here. These are just a handful of the clients we've worked with. We are nearing 200 clients that we've worked with. But to give you some examples, you know, Holy City Med, they are disrupting medical. They're disrupting healthcare in a way of offering a membership platform for individuals and for employers to offer for their team. Ascalon Payroll, they disrupt by offering service that is beyond what any of the ADPs and Paylocities and all those have that are just automated where you're just a member. The Stingrays, Charleston's minor league hockey team, they're disrupting hockey. They're offering experiences that are just superior and really bringing in younger audiences and a lot of female audiences as well. AgriShield is disrupting building solutions, offering bio-natural materials. So all of these clients that we're working with really disrupting very crowded spaces. Could we all agree that healthcare is a pretty crowded space? No one is delivering the way Holy City Med delivers. You know, building supplies, building materials, pretty crowded space, right? No one else has hempcrete blocks that are pest resistant, mold resistant, and easy to lift and manufactured in the US, by the way. Incredible. So we've got to get to that for your business today. And that's what I really want to do if anyone is open for that. All right. So let's talk for you guys. Take some notes here. How do you disrupt your industry? How are you disrupting? And that really takes some looking internally at your business. I'm going to do the do's and don'ts of being a disruptor. I'm going to start with the don'ts because I'm a mom, so I'm really good at telling people what not to do. Right? All right. So we're going to start with don't. When you reach out to someone, do not memorize a script. Do not read a script. Internalize what you're going to say. Know it. A lot of the people on this call, actually, I've met through cold calls, and I've met you through networking events and social media. You know, every conversation I have, I approach, whether it's a cold call or an introduction or referral, whatever, as someone that we absolutely could be friends. We just don't know each other well enough to say that yet, right? And it's just that kind of energy. I'm not pitching anyone anything. I'm not selling anyone anything. You guys, I'm not interested in convincing anyone of a damn thing. I want to be 100% hell yes for people who want to work with me, or it's a no. So let's start with the script. Do not read, do not memorize. I'm going to check myself on time here. I'm doing pretty good. Okay. Do not have messaging that is about being 5% better, 10% faster, cheaper, whatever. Here's the deal. When you do that, you are developing transactions. You are not developing relationships. Because if you sell someone on being 10% cheaper, guess what happens when someone comes behind you and they are 3% cheaper than you are? They're gone. If someone buys you on price or buys you on speed, they are gone when it is time to renew or evaluate, or someone comes along and can cut you just that much. So really focus on building relationships, and that is done through value-based propositioning. Okay, don't jump right into pitch mode. I kind of talked about this a few minutes ago, but really, when you jump into pitch mode, all you are doing is talking at someone. And I kind of feel like I'm doing that right now, so I really can't wait to get this a little more interactive. But when you get into pitch mode, you aren't having a conversation anymore. And really the whole point is to have as much back and forth as you can have. Do not list out all your features, because here's the thing. There may be only 2 features of your service that apply. So if you spit 10 features at someone who could care less about 8 of them, it might as well go all over their head, okay? You want to talk about your benefits, but you can only do that when you have enough information from them through that back and forth conversation to be able to address those directly. Benefits do not matter. They sound pretty to you because you are in your service, but they really don't matter to the client. It is the benefit. What is in it for me? And I'm going to say this as well. This is really important. If you're speaking to a client, a decision maker, those benefits are going to be very different from that of a gatekeeper. So if you're not speaking, if you say you're having a sales conversation with someone who's the gatekeeper, but they're not the ultimate decision maker. And I know we all say, oh, only speak to decision maker. Cool. But if you have your foot in the door with a gatekeeper, absolutely take that opportunity. But you have to understand that a gatekeeper's benefits are going to be very, very different from that of a decision maker. So you really, again, want to remember your audience and speak directly to them. And I'm going to sidebar this for a minute, you guys, and tell you about gatekeepers. When you are doing outreach, and I certainly hope you do, I believe that cold calling is the fastest, most effective way to build rapport with your prospect wish list. I've built much of my business through cold calling, and I do that for my clients and their businesses. So I've got a lot of proof behind this that it works. And it's a bit of a lost art, but cold calling works. When you speak to a gatekeeper, do not treat them like human voicemail receptacles. You want to treat that gatekeeper like they are your potential advocate and ally. These are people that you want to educate them about why they want to take this conversation to the next step and make them look like a rock star, okay? A lot of times people look over those gatekeepers and try to get around them, but man, some of my best contacts are my admins, my paralegals, my executive assistants, because when we can establish rapport and they can see that I'm a real human and I see that they're a real human, and we can build that relationship, and I'm not just trying to get past them, it's less about a game, right? Again, you're there for the long haul to build that relationship. All right, so we've talked about what not to do. Let's talk about what you should be doing. You want to ask questions. You want to talk about how you're different. This is a great prompt. Write this down, please. What are the preconceived misconceptions that someone has about your space that you can say, oh, no, it is not like that at all, right? So let's talk about me. Preconceived misconceptions about lead generation, that they are outsourced, that they are overseas, that they have headsets and and booths and they're telemarketers, or they're AI bots. They're reading a script, they're memorizing a script. And I say, oh, no, that's not it at all. My team is all US based. They're all full-time employees. Our team actually is mostly made up of single mothers and military spouses, which is something I'm really proud of, because for us, helping women build financial independence and agency over their own lives is something I'm deeply committed to. But think about how you are different. When someone hears who you are and what you do, why are they rolling their eyes? And just address it. You don't have to, I remember when I was in New York and we did a lot of sales training, right? Like really good sales training at the time. Don't get me wrong. This is a couple decades ago. I won't clarify. And we're taught when you get an objection, you want to hit the rebuttal to help close. Guys, let's not do that anymore. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. Again, that builds transactions. It doesn't build you sales. It doesn't build you relationships that will last. But when someone gives you a concern, just respond to it, right? How would it feel if you were like, look, I get it. Like, you've probably had this conversation before. You've probably heard from people in my space before. But if I may, let me tell you how this is not like that at all, and just acknowledging that maybe they've had some snake oil in the past and how you get it and you fight against that every single day, because it's ridiculous what happens in our industries, and every industry has that. We all fight against those issues and those preconceived misconceptions. All right. What value are you going to provide on an initial discovery call? This is really important. How are they going to leave that discovery call better, whether they work with you or not? You've got to think about that. What will you do for them? What will you give them? What will you teach them? What are you going to uncover for them that they will walk away with, whether they work with you or not? They can have it. This is something that I started doing back when I was working with some digital marketing. And I was just doing very fast audits, live on the phone with people. I would do an audit of what was missing in their current strategy that I could tell just by looking at a website. It's still a party trick I love to do to this day. And when I did that, I was able to establish trust, credibility, professionalism, knowledge, like all of those things. And again, whether they worked with me or not, they knew. Bring it back to your current guy. You're so committed, sure. Ask them why this stuff is missing. Ask them why this is implemented properly. But more times than not, they would come back to us for a deeper dive conversation. And then again, what results will they see when they work with you? Metrics are really, really important. Being able to monetize your service in a way that makes it such a no-brainer is the way, when you're speaking to the right people, that when you get to pricing and when you talk about what your service costs, it will be a no-brainer because of the ROI that you've already established you can create for them. So those are the things that I would recommend. I'm going to give you guys my final thought, and then again, we'll jump in here. I'll stop screen sharing. I'm all about the butterfly effect because I do think that small actions, consistent actions, really can create long-term huge effects down the road. And I, a lot of times, of course, talk about intentional growth and, cold outreach and all those things. We'll probably touch on that later in the season for disruptor discussions as well. But the final thought I'll leave you with is, what if you looked at the work that you're doing in your business as those small, consistent actions, that butterfly effect, being disruptive in your industry? It doesn't change overnight. Offering service in a different level in a new way, you're not going to get the attention immediately. There's probably not going to be a viral moment in the first couple of weeks. It doesn't feel like anything's happening. But staying consistent and knowing that when you stay with messaging over and over and letting everyone know how you're different, that's what will get you the results down the road. Because that's what will get you the reputation where people are coming to you and saying, I want to hear about this. We started our Disruptor Designer 3 years ago. I told you guys, I was looking to try to figure out what was the common denominator. We started this. I was the only one talking about disruption. And now 3 years later, I do have people coming to me and saying, oh, you're the one who talks about disruption all the time. Well, yeah, I am. Because I've stuck with it and I've been consistent. If I did this and I stopped talking about it, I wouldn't have ever gotten any traction. But here's the other thing about it, is it's aligned. Because I've been called disruptive my entire life, and it was never as a compliment, ever. It was always a weakness. And I've really learned how to turn that weakness into my superpower. That perceived weakness, because it really never was a weakness. I just know that I can do it better. I know that there's a different way, that there's a better way. Just because it's always been done this way doesn't mean it always has to be. So how can you disrupt your business, your industry, your space in a way that's for the positive for your clients? I also want to touch on next week. We have Matt Stone coming as our first guest for the second season of Disruptor Discussions. And Matt is with Behavioral OS. He's going to be talking about positive friction in organizations and how creating communication using positive friction can actually help move your organization forward. And I will tell you, I've worked with Matt for a while now. He's absolutely brilliant. a fellow New Yorker, so of course I love that about him. But the thing about what they're doing at Behavioral LS is they're really disrupting the way people think about conversations on leadership teams. I'm really looking forward to sharing that with you next week. So I'm going to stop sharing today. Do we have any questions? I'm going to look at the chat real quick and see, Joey, if I missed anything. Do we have any questions that anyone wants to bring up? You can use the chat feature if you'd like, or you can come off mute. And if not, I would love to put someone in for a hot seat if we have anyone who would like to do that.
We do have volunteers for the hot seat.
Okay, great.
Yeah, Shoshana was our first volunteer, and if we have time for it, Karina volunteered as well.
Awesome. Okay, great. Well, Shoshana, once you come off mute.
Hey.
Hi. All right, so let's start by this. Tell me about, because I know you've got a couple different plates spinning right now in your world. So tell me about what it is that you want to create some disruptive messaging around.
Functional nutrition, specifically helping women end emotional eating.
Okay. Tell me about what are the typical messages that women are receiving from other people in your space?
They would have to do with diets, gym memberships, maybe therapy, maybe hypnotherapy. Those would probably be the big ones.
Yeah. I also hear a lot about somatic healing in that space as well, right? So tell me about how your approach is different from what else is out there to solve.
Right. So I come at it sort of medically. I do an intake form where I get their whole health and I show them their whole health, how it affects every part of their body on one piece of paper. It has to do with like their sleeping, their eating, like all their habits, and then all their symptoms, and then some things from their past. And they won't know that until a initial call, but that eventually they'll find out this is what I do. And then they can see why I may choose to come at their situation from a specific angle. So I'm trained in functional nutrition. So I know nutrition, but I'm also trained as an advanced belief clearing practitioner. So I'm trained to work in the subconscious. I'm trained to go to the root issues. And I don't think there's anybody, I know some of the bigger companies that are, I don't know what their names are, maybe like Noom and those, they have like therapists on board, kind of, so to say. They don't go at it from a functional nutrition angle.
Okay.
And they're typically not getting to root issues. Most of the bigger programs, they want people to follow their format and get on these. And I'll tell you, another component is that I've been with coaches for decades in different ways. And I've interviewed people over decades who do coaching. And one of the things that I find is nobody stays with their client through implementation to absolute success.
Right.
For a period of time where they can, like, I could actually walk away from somebody and say, you've really got this. I know you've got it, and I'm here for you if you want more help, in any way, message me, whatever. I actually stay with people long enough so that they have enough wins so that they know what they're doing for themselves. They're the heroes.
Yeah.
And I'm still available as a service guide, and sometimes at no charge, just to be that you got a quick question. And I find that most, and I'm not a coach, I'm a counselor, but people refer to me as a coach, so out of not knowing.
So let's go into that, Shoshana. What's the difference? Why should someone care that you're a counselor, not a coach?
Right. So coaches to the best of my knowledge, will allow somebody to guide themselves with support, like tell me what you want, tell me how that feels, tell me how you'd like that to go, and what do you think it should do next, and how do you know how to do that? And, and maybe give them some strategies.
Yeah.
Counseling is all about guidance.
Yeah.
It's all about, hey, sit down, relax. I got you. Here's your life. Here's what you got going on. Let's look at it from this angle, because from this angle, we're going to be able to knock this stuff out. And, so I guide them. And here's your next step. And here's your next step. I find out how does that make you feel, and I get their insight and their experience, but I'm the guide.
Okay.
I'm the guide, and they get to like sit back.
So what I'm hearing, first of all, is that there's a lot of like cut and copy strategies or programs that it's going to be one size fits all, but what you do is very unique. The fact that you are a counselor, not a coach, and I would really spend a lot of time talking about the difference, because I think you're right. I think that is a huge differentiator for you. One of the prompts that I really like for something like this is again, I love this example, Shoshana, because there's a lot of people in this space. There's a lot of people who say they do this. Great. And it's not to like, it's not to take away from what anyone else is doing, but say something like, one of these larger companies that it's more of an app-based thing. That is someone who is attracted to that is not the right client for you.
Right.
Right. You want clients, I would assume, that you are able to do a lot more hand holding. It's concierge level, right? It's white glove service. I'm going to give you a prompt for this. Would you consider the idea that working with a counselor would be vastly different from anything else that you've done before?
That's nice.
I like that, because you're just putting it back in their hands to say, look, you've tried A, B, C, and D. We know that those don't work because you're here. So if any of those things were going to work for you, they would have stuck. Would you consider the idea of that? And that they were never meant to succeed. They were meant to keep you on. They were meant to keep you on that roller coaster, that up and down, that high and low, which gives you the adrenaline and then the crash. And that's why you keep coming back. And that's why you're in the cycle. I'm here to get you out of that cycle. That's not what these other solutions are meant to do. So a lot of times, when we're talking about competition, people like to say, this is what we do and this is what they don't do, and they're bad and we're good. You guys, I never, ever talk about competition. Usually, if someone is deciding to use us, they're either deciding to use us or nothing at all, or use us or like digital marketing. It's never us and another lead gen company, because again, it's not apples to apples.
Right.
I don't spend any time talking about what anyone else is doing in this space, because it doesn't matter. And so when someone tells me I've had a really bad experience with someone else in this space, I'll say very clearly, I'm like, I get it. There's a lot of snake oil, and I mentioned that previously, right? There's a lot of snake oil out there. I get it. Rather than talking about that, because I don't know what that experience is. I don't know what those companies are. I don't work for them. Let me tell you how we're different from those experiences. Let me tell you how those experiences, you wouldn't have those experiences with us. And I'll go through that one at a time.
Yep.
I'm not interested in trying to spend time discrediting someone, because the more you do that, the more you're actually edifying them.
Yeah.
The more attention you give someone, the more credibility you give them, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
When someone says, oh, we're working with sales bots, or, whatever the company of the day is, we're using AI callers. I'm like, oh, okay, well, good to know, but not necessarily the the right client for me. If you're happy with that, if you're good with like an AI bot calling your people, we're not going to be the right fit for you because we're white glove. Like that's out. That's just not even in the same realm of what we do. So, and that's okay. You have to be willing to let go of people as well. You feel like you got some good messaging to work with going forward?
That's great. I
Awesome.
appreciate it. Yeah, it's always nice to hear, to think this way because sometimes I work so much on the business
Yeah,
and so it's nice to kind of sit back and be a participant in my business.
yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the thing is, spending some time every week implementing stuff like this is going to be super important going forward. Because if you sound like everyone else, nothing's going to change. It's when
Yeah,
you start to sound really different.
thank
All
you.
right, you got it. Karina, you're up, my friend.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Hi.
All right. Tell me, well, I know about your business, but why don't you tell, if you're able to come off camera, please do so we can see that badass haircut. Uh, tell me about what it is right now that you're struggling with messaging. And why don't you give everyone just kind of an overview about your business?
Oh, okay. I'm the founder and CEO of Profit Lines. We are a profit optimization, growth strategy, and capital funding advisory and consulting firm. And what we provide for our clients is increasing their cash flow, reducing their financial risk, increasing board confidence, and giving the business owners and business leaders confidence in their financial stability in their organization to allow them to grow and scale.
Mm, okay. Where do you feel like you are struggling with messaging? Do you feel like you're getting lost in the mix?
Yes,
Okay.
that they don't truly understand what it is that we're bringing to the table.
Okay.
And
Where do you think that's happening? Is that during the sales call or is that prior?
I think it's during, because typically we're having some type of communication, and whether it's over the phone or an email or an introduction, and it's during the conversation that there's confusion. And part of my conversation with folks is to, as you had alluded to earlier, ask the questions. I ask a lot of questions, and I typically am letting them lead the conversation
Mhm.
and to find out really where their pain points are at and their challenges. And it's more targeted around how are you currently uh, tracking your profitability within your organization? What is your confidence level in that? When is the last time you've had a forensic financial analysis performed of your P&L? And typically these questions, they can either answer very quickly or it creates an aha moment going, we've not done that. What is that? Uh, and but oftentimes they think like it's a typical consulting. Some of the myths that they believe in, it's a consulting engagement where I'm going to be committed to you long term, whereas I have flipped the script on consulting where our goal is to work on projects, not timelines. So our commitment is based on the result, not necessarily a timeline.
Okay. I'm going to give you a prompt in a minute, but I think that value-based proposition is going to be really important for you here. So if you don't feel like it's a messaging issue from the beginning, right? People are coming into your world and you're getting in front of them. Let me ask you one more question, Karina. Do you feel like you're losing anyone to someone else in your space? Or you feel like you just lose them to the abyss, like they don't convert
I lose
because,
them to the abyss.
okay,
I've not talked to anyone yet that has worked with somebody doing what I'm doing.
got it. Okay. Good. Well, that's a good thing. Because when you don't have that, then you're not fighting against those preconceived misconceptions. So you're already starting ahead. What I'm going to have you do is look at how are you creating value-based propositioning for your clients? Meaning, are you able to monetize your services in a way the ROI is such a no-brainer that, you know, why wouldn't they go with you?
Mm-hmm.
A great prompt for this is, what would it look like if? I've heard a lot of times people do the magic wand question. I don't do it quite that way because I'm not, it's just not really my vibe, but that's okay. But let's use that example, right? The magic wand. If I could wave a magic wand, what would it look like in your business 3, 6, 9 months from now, right? But let's flip that. What would it look like 6 months from now if you had mitigated any risk in your business? If you knew that you were protected, you were maximizing your cash flow, you're maximizing your profitability, what would that look like for you 6 months from now? What would that mean to you? Would you sleep better at night? Would you be able to hire more people? Would you be able to get more support? Would you be able to grow and scale like you've been wanting to do? But I really like the question of that prompt. Again, what would it look like? Because when you propose it that way, you're like, we can make this happen for you. And that's exactly what you go into from there. So where do you want to be? Well, I want to increase my profitability by 20%. Okay. We increase your profitability by 20%. What would it look like for you if we make that happen in the next 6 months? Well, we'd be able to do this. Okay. I'm here to tell you that we can do that for you. And that's only if you can, right?
Mm-hmm.
If what they're
Mhm.
saying is reasonable. But that also helps you set realistic expectations. If someone's saying they want to increase their profitability by 3,000%, you're like, oh, well, maybe we can't do that in 6 months, but here's what's reasonable and fair. You know, when I get on the phone with someone and I'll say, what would it look like if we could put 5, 6 new business appointments on your calendar every month that were interested, pre-qualified, warm, ready to go? What would that look like for you? If you had 3, you could close 50%. Wow. That's 3 new clients a month. What would that look like for you in your business 6 months down the road? And then let them come up with, because then I think what you're going to see, Karina, is that people are going to say, I'll tell you what I hear. Okay. People will say, well, if I did that, then I'm going to have to hire more of this. And I'm going to have to, and then you start to really uncover like what the fear-based thing is going on. And then you can be like, well, wouldn't that be a good problem to have?
Yeah.
Right? Like
My
that's not
response
going
to
to
that
happen
are
overnight.
those are
So you can have
challenges I usually look for.
right. You can have enough time to plan for that and forecast for that.
Mm-hmm.
But man, if expanding your team, you know you're going to have to do that in order to scale the business. If those are your goals. So like, is that really what you want? Because, and then again, you can see if there's disconnection between what they're saying they want and then what they'd have to do to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the other thing about your service is that it is pretty much, would you say, Karina, like done with you, right?
It is done with you.
You're right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So it's not done for you that they just need to sit back. You need an active participant in
Mm-hmm.
this. So you need to know, will they be an active participant? You are not
Right.
dragging them along for the ride. Because I've done that. It is a terrible position to be in
Mm-hmm.
when you're having to do that. So then you'll be able to see, oh, well, then I'll have to do this. Instead of being like, oh my God, then I'm going to get to hire more people. Let's do it. I work with home services, you guys, and I find that in home services, there's people who say, I can't take on any more work. I can't find anyone who wants to work with me. I'm jammed up. Our guys, we have a 3-week wait time and no one shows up and people don't want to work and they don't want jobs and they just want to collect their checks. And then there's the people who say, you got more work, bring it. We'll figure it out. We'll hire more. We'll get more people on. Bring it. Just bring it. I'll figure it out.
Yep.
I want to work with those guys. These are not my clients. And I tried to work with these guys. It doesn't work. You need the ones that are ready, eager, willing to scale, to grow, to do what it takes. And again, I think you and I have a lot of synergies in our businesses there as well. And kind of the energy that someone needs to, you know, to be able to appreciate what we deliver. Right. And again, back to you, Karina, I think that being able to really monetize your service in a way, and you and I'm happy to do this with you one-on-one, where we talk about pricing versus what they get, what that looks like in the business. If you can increase profitability by X%, it's going to bring them this much, and it costs them this much. It's like a no-brainer. And the only other thing at that point that would stop someone from moving forward is revenue. So you have to make sure that you're speaking with people with revenue that can support your service.
And that's what we target. Yeah, it is, our pricing is value-based pricing.
There you go. There you go. So I would try those prompts and I'm happy to give you some more, you know, again, now or offline with what really makes the most sense. But I think what you guys do is badass. I really love the business
Thank you.
model.
Thank you. Well,
And
we've shaken up the model, so it's, I think part of it is there's discomfort in what's familiar, and what we're doing is not familiar. So there's
Right.
hesitation because we're not a typical consulting or advisory firm.
yeah,
You know,
Well,
we don't want to park in there. We want to go in, be very efficient, and then roll back out.
yeah. So you can circle back to those preconceived misconceptions. Look, I'm sure you've heard it done this way, and that is not at all how we work. Let me just assure you. Let's get this out of the way. Okay? I think sometimes being direct like that, people really appreciate that. And it's not necessarily on a cold call. I always love to talk about cold calls because, again, obviously, that's what we love to do here. But also talk about it the way you're communicating in your emails and in your social, right? And I'm by no means an email marketing or social media expert, but as I am growing in my business, I'm learning that the more authentic I get in my messaging, I don't try to sound like anyone. I want you to have the same experience with me in a webinar that you have if you see me on a podcast, that you have when you go to my website, that you have in a one-on-one, or when we're having a glass of wine together. I want it to all be aligned. And the only way to do that is to be authentic and to show up as yourself and to sound like yourself in your social and sound like you in your emails. And that's establishing a brand voice that you are driving.
And that's one of my initiatives for 2025 is getting more awareness out there in the brand and my brand voice.
Yeah,
as well.
Same. I think we're all looking to really keep evolving our businesses and, you know, and we evolve, right? We evolve. We're getting better. The Karina from 3 years ago is not the exact same voice.
She doesn't want to be. She
Right.
wants to be different. Yeah. She wants to evolve and grow.
But I saw a friend share this in a reel on LinkedIn earlier today, and she's Rashonda is actually going to be Rashonda Pratt will be a guest on Disruptor Discussions in a few weeks, and Lilia will as well. Lilia, 2 more weeks for you, my friend. But Rashonda was talking about the more you talk, the more you give your message, the more it will clarify, the more you'll evolve and really get much more pinpointed on your brand message. And I really loved that because you don't have to know everything from the start, but you have to start somewhere. So you guys, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you so much for being here. Please come back. We do this every Wednesday until the middle of June. Oh my God, it's January. And I just think of what life is going to feel like in June when it's not 40 degrees outside. Oh, I can't wait.
Jennifer, is there a recurring meeting that
Yes.
we can add to our calendar?
Yeah, I can do that for you for sure. We're gonna be doing that anyway, so I will get you on that list, Karina. But yeah, we're gonna be doing this every Wednesday at noon Eastern for an hour. Again, I'm respectful of everyone's time. We start right at like 2 past the hour and we end right at time as well. And I thank you guys for being here. You know, if I could leave you with final thought today, it would be to really think about how you can disrupt your industry. How can you disrupt the preconceived misconceptions of what someone has when they hear about what you do, right? Someone who works with business profitability, someone who works in functional nutrition, someone who works in bookkeeping and accounting. There's so much chatter, there's so much noise. How do you break through that and deliver in a way that's also aligned with who you are, but in a way that you can really, really serve a client beyond what the industry expectation is? So you set a new level for your clients in the way you serve them. And once you're able to do that, you will have relationships that will last far beyond a contract length. So thank you guys so much for being here. This was amazing. I'm like on such a high. I was frankly nervous to do this by myself for the first time, but having all these friendly faces made it so much more comfortable. Joey, thank you for being the most badass producer and keeping me on track. He knows that I tend to go down rabbit holes, so Joey's really good at reining me back in when necessary, but I don't even think you needed to today, Joey. You guys, I will see you next week when we have Matt Stone here with Behavioral OS, and I hope you guys all have the very best day ever. Thanks so much.